March 2008 marks the 75th anniversary of the New Deal, an era inspired by the leadership of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The New Deal was a series of federal programs designed to bring an end to the Depression and to put the forgotten man and his family back to work. The Great Depression began when the never-ending party of the Roaring Twenties came to a sudden halt. On October 29, 1929, which became known as Black Tuesday, the stock market crashed, starting a downward economic slide. Banks failed, countless businesses were wiped out, and hard-working people found themselves without jobs, homes, and even food.
Why should I be standing in line, just waiting for bread? Once I built a railroad, I made it run, made it race against time. Once I built a railroad, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once I built a
President Herbert Hoover had held office for less than 8 months when the stock market crashed, but he did not believe that the government should lead the way to end the economic depression, instead wanting to rely on private measures to solve it.
We are told by the opposition that we must have a change, that we must have a New Deal. It is not the change that comes from the normal development of national life to which I object or you object, but the proposal to alter the whole foundations of our national life, which have been builded through generations of testing and struggle and of principle upon which we have made this nation.
Hoover spoke out against the New Deal, the economic policy that served as the basis of Franklin D. Roosevelt's successful bid for the 1932 presidential election. Roosevelt felt that the country needed 3 things: relief, recovery, and reform. The New Deal focused on providing relief to unemployed Americans and the troubled manufacturing sector while promoting economic recovery and reforming the American finance system to prevent the recurrence of the Depression. Roosevelt pushed a number of acts of legislation and policy which came to collectively be known as the New Deal, a reference to a statement that he made in his inauguration speech.
It is the way to recovery. It is the immediate way. It is the strongest assurance that recovery will endure.
Roosevelt created jobs with a series of New Deal programs, including one of the most popular and successful of these programs, the Civilian Conservation Corps, better known as the CCC. The CCC combined work relief with the preservation of natural resources. Begun in 1933, it put young unemployed men and some women between the ages of 18 and 25 to work. Work included building fire breaks and lookouts in the national forests and bridges, campgrounds, trails, and museums in the national parks. The men lived in work camps run by the U.S. Army. There were over 1,500 camps in all, and by the end, over 2.5 million men and 8,000 women were put to work. They earned $30 a month, 25 of which had to be sent home to their families. Many young men made their first trip from the city to rural Wyoming when hired on to work a year or two in one of the state's 19 Civilian Conservation Corps camps, including locations in Lovell, Veteran, and Powell, where the CCC helped to build the Heart Mountain Japanese-American internment camp. Guernsey State Park provides the finest examples of Civilian Conservation Corps work in the Rocky Mountain area. The park has long been known as a haven for boating, camping, hiking, and picnicking, but its real treasure may lie in the wonderful CCC work that can be seen throughout the park. CCC projects in the park include hiking trails, roads, bridges, buildings, including the castle, Brimmer Point, and the museum, and even a 9-hole golf course which was abandoned in the early 1940s. All across the United States, New Deal work crews helped to build homes, pave roads, and build public structures, among many other things. The New Deal also established Social Security and pushed membership in labor unions and sustainable farming policy. Under the New Deal, American financial systems were also reformed. Roosevelt pushed for a balanced budget, more financial responsibility, and other policies which promoted economic health and growth. In addition, the New Deal had an impact on the arts, as it established funding for artists under the Works Progress Administration, or the WPA. Many enduring artistic expressions of the Great Depression were produced by artists with support from the WPA. In the fall of 1937, Roosevelt boarded a train and began a trip cross-country to pick up first-hand impressions on how the Northwest felt about things in general and the New Deal in particular. During his stop in Cheyenne, he was unexpectedly greeted by Wyoming Senator Joseph O'Mahony, one of 3 Democratic senators who just months before helped defeat the Roosevelt plan to enlarge the Supreme Court. Never one to appear ruffled, Roosevelt said with gusto, "Hello, Joe, glad to see you." In his first and second terms as president, Roosevelt faced many struggles. The U.S. Supreme Court deemed portions of his New Deal projects unconstitutional. And while much was done to alleviate the struggles of the American population, the Great Depression was still not over. More than 5 million people, nearly 10% of the workforce, still were unemployed in 1941. That unemployment would not last. Even as Roosevelt declared America's neutrality in the impending war, American workers began toiling round the clock, building ships, tanks, and planes. Army bases grew up throughout the country to house soldiers preparing for combat. These bases provided other jobs to nearby residents. At 8 a.m. on December 7, 1941, the air raid sirens blasted. Pearl Harbor was being attacked by the Japanese. Now there could be no neutrality. The next day, Roosevelt declared that December 7, 1941 was a day which will live in infamy, and Congress declared war on Japan. Thousands of young men and women would be drafted into the military. Roosevelt called for 7-day work weeks in every war industry, including the production of raw materials. New plants would be built, and old ones enlarged. The Pearl Harbor raid and the start of World War II helped put an end to the Great Depression, although a new, deadlier, and even grimmer challenge now faced Americans.
It will not only be a long war, it will be a hard war. That is the basis on which we now lay all our plans. That is the yardstick by which we measure what we shall need and demand. Money, materials, doubled and quadrupled production, ever increasing. The production must be not only for our own Army and Navy and Air Forces, it must reinforce the other armies and navies and air forces, fighting the Nazis and the war lords of Japan throughout the Americas and throughout the world.
There are several New Deal programs still in operation today, some of which still exist under their original names, including the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or the FDIC, the Federal Housing Administration, FHA, and the Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA. The largest programs still in existence today are the Social Security System and the Securities and Exchange Commission, the primary regulator of publicly traded firms. And most recently, a rarely used Depression-era law helped to bail out Wall Street bank Bear Stearns through a provision to provide loans. And just last year, the Wyoming State Legislature approved funding for the establishment of the Wyoming Conservation Corps to work on projects ranging from trail construction in Guernsey State Park to cleaning and rehabilitating a state land section west of Casper and surveying for noxious weeds in the Osage Field near Newcastle. At the time, the New Deal was met with huge amounts of criticism from some quarters and massive praise from others. In retrospect, the New Deal was a major event in American history. Legacies of New Deal programs can be seen in every state, including Wyoming, and it's clear that the New Deal helped shape the American landscape and American attitudes.